Once again, back for AP Economics from the Krugman book. Okay, we're going to talk about interpreting price elasticity of demand, and it's going to be a couple of sections. We're doing the first one now. Okay, we already talked about a price elasticity. Greater than 1 is elastic, less than 1 is inelastic. Now, something new. A vertical demand curve is perfectly inelastic. Okay, so the words perfectly inelastic means your demand curve looks like that. A horizontal demand curve, in other words, if your demand curve looks like that, it's perfectly elastic. Okay, and there's actually examples kind of in real life that are pretty close to these if they're not exactly there. Okay, we talk about total revenue. Total revenue is simply price times quantity. We talked about that a little bit last time, right? How much revenue did my business generate? We'll take the price of everything times its quantity of everything. That give you, add them together, you get total revenue. Okay. Now, just a tidbit along a linear demand curve. In other words, if your demand curve looks like that, the demand is elastic. Find the midpoint. It's elastic here. It's inelastic here, and we'll kind of cover that, but not a big deal, so you don't have to write that down, just kind of good information to know. Okay, and in general, goods are elastic many substitutes. I go to the store and I want to go for breakfast, and I can either have bagels or a croissant. Well, to me, it's like, hey, I like bagels, I like croissants. Which one's cheaper? Well, the bagel's half price today. I'm buying a bagel. The next day, the croissant's half price. I'm buying a croissant. In other words, lots of substitutes. Bread's bread. I'll be good. Some of you may feel differently. That's okay, too. Okay. Now, how elastic is elastic? Okay, so we already wrote down perfectly inelastic. It looks like an eye. Okay, so inelastic, right? Looks like an eye. Think insulin. I need insulin. Well, what happens if, you know, it gets more expensive? It's like, I don't want to buy insulin anymore. What happens to you? Well, it might kill you, okay? So it's like, yeah, if the price goes up, you just got to deal with it. Perfectly elastic, okay? 2 gas stations next door. They're the same to me. One of them charges $2, the other one charges $2 and a penny. Guess what? I go to the $2 one. It's like, well, it's only a penny. It's like, yeah, but it's gas and gas. They're both right next to each other. I'm going to save the penny. That's why lots of times when you see 2 gas stations get next together, what's their price? It's exactly the same, because the gas station owners know that, okay? Because it's tough to convince people that it's different. Okay, now, you notice this? Elastic, inelastic. That's an elastic. Inelastic. Elastic looks like an E. Inelastic looks like an I. Okay? Now, there'll be curves that are closer to elastic. They're not going to be elastic, but they'll be closer. You know, they might look like, let's say, like that. Okay? That's an elastic curve. That's called relatively elastic. So draw a curve there, write a demand curve, have it sloping down a little bit. That's relatively elastic. That's typically elastic, okay? And then if it's closer to an I, it looks more like that, like gasoline or whatever. If you talking about gasoline, not a gas station, but gasoline itself, I got to have it. It's going to be relatively inelastic. It's going to look more like an I, okay? Relatively inelastic. Not gas, 2 different gas stations, but gasoline itself. You're still going to buy gas. You still have to go to school. You still have to drive around, do all the stuff you got to do. Maybe you consolidate trips. Okay. In your book, it goes through this. This is figure 47.1. Go to figure 47.1. Maybe you look at it for a little bit. Maybe it makes more sense. It gives you a little bit more explanation and context. Do that. Okay. Now, total revenue. We talked about it briefly in the previous video. Okay, total revenue and elasticity. Revenue is simply price times quantity. Okay, that's revenue. Okay, a firm wants to increase the price. What will happen? Well, if they increase the price, they don't want to earn less revenue. They want to earn more revenue, and so they need to measure whether that's going to happen or not. Okay, they do that. We go here. Okay, it depends on whether the price or the quantity effect is more significant. In other words, if I raise the price 10%, well, how much can the quantity go down? Well, the answer is less than 10%, because if the quantity goes down 10% or even more, my revenues will actually drop. So when I raise the price, I want the total revenue to go up also. So you have the price effect and the quantity effect. Price effect simply, how much does the price change? The quantity effect is how much does the quantity decrease? Okay, so let's look at one. Okay, will total revenue go up, go down, or stay the same? Price increases 1%, quantity demanded decreases 5%. What's going to happen? Think about that. Pause it if you need to. And the answer is, well, the price is going to increase by 1%. The quantity demanded is going to decrease by 5%. So the quantity effect is going to have more impact than the price effect, so your total revenue is going to go down. By the way, if you do your calculation, that gives you an elasticity of 5, okay, which is greater than 1. Therefore, it's elastic. Therefore, in this case, you probably don't want to raise the price because you're not going to get as much revenue. Okay, now the price increases 10%. The quantity demanded only decreases 5%. Same thing. Okay, now your total revenue is going to increase, unlike the last one, because we have 10% higher prices, but we only lost 5% of our sales. And so that's going to be inelastic. So price increases, total revenue increases, that's inelastic. Okay? Now, price increases 10%, quantity demanded decreases 10%. That's the definition of unit elastic. Our total revenue stays unchanged. Okay? That's called a unit elastic response. So unit elastic is when it's exactly the same. Okay, total revenue doesn't change. So that's the total revenue test. I keep trying to do it. I'm going to figure out I can do it here. Okay, in your book, it explains that. Okay, this is figure 47.2. So take a quick look if you need to. That may help you better understand this. Okay, figure 47.3 covers some more details around the dollars and also might be helpful. Feel free to look at that. It does some of your calculations for you here. So look in your book at figure 47.3. That may help you if this is a little bit of a struggle for you. Okay, so practice question. Perfectly elastic demand curve. Check your answers, pause the video, determine your answer, and we'll be right back. Okay, a perfectly elastic demand. Elastic is horizontal. D. Which of the following is true if the price elasticity of demand for a good is 0? So price elasticity is 0. Pause the video. Okay, remember it's the quantity on top and price on the bottom. This can't be 0. This has to be 0. That means the quantity never changes. Well, think about your demand curve. Here's price. Here's quantity. My quantity can never change. That's vertical, okay? So the demand curve is vertical. For this to be 0, the demand curve has to be 0. All right, that's our first part, and we will see you next time with the second part of impacts of elasticity.